Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Matilda. First of all, I would like to greet everybody and say to everybody here in Africa and in fact the entire world, congratulations. We have a new president of the African Development Bank, and that's Dr. Ta Sidi Ould from Mauritania, has been elected this afternoon. So it's a great joy that the premier institution in Africa for financing has a new president with a new vision, and we will be able to be tackling the challenges that faces us for development. As colleagues have introduced, my name is Augusto Maquengo. I work for the African Development Bank for 18 years. I'm Chief Budget and Resources Management Coordinator. I've been in several areas in the bank dealing with a lot of issues. I've been in regional integration and trade. That's one of the first department I joined when I joined the bank from Australia. I used to be in Melbourne, assistant professor at La Trobe University, and that's where I was recruited from. And I came to ADB, and the journey has been a bit long, but we're still going. So let's go into the subject. I'm going to be very brief in terms of presentation to allow the questions. I know you have a lot of questions today. The subject is disrupting the trade, disruption of trade in Africa. How can we leverage the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and overcome challenges and drive sustainable development and growth? Next page, please. Next slide. Yes, and here we want to look at Africa is really at the crossroads of all development today. Just click again. You can go ahead, Ruth. Just a click. Yes, I just want to say that Africa holds about 30% of the world mineral resources and has a huge population. Most of, we could say that 40 or 50% of the African population is youth, is young. So, and intra-Africa trade today accounts only of less than 17% of the total African trade, and against the 60% in Europe. Today, the discussion will center mostly in what are the major trade disruptions that continue to hinder economic progress, and what are the disruptions that can really turn over trade in Africa. So these are two ways conversation. What are positive disruptions and what are negative disruptions? And in the next slide, you will be able to understand how trade has been functioning in Africa. These are very interesting numbers, and I wish you really to pay attention on these. Let's go to next slide, Ruth. Yes, look at this. This is something interesting that you should pay attention. Intra-regional trade share by region in Africa, and compared to the other continents of the world, you can see that Africa inter-trade share is just between 16 to 17%, compared to 60 and 17 in Europe. Asia 58 to 60, and North America is 40 until 50%, meaning that Africa loses billions of dollars yearly by relying heavily on external trade partners instead of strengthening inter-market. And this is due to several factors that we are going to see in the next coming slides. When you look at these statistics, these are tested and proven statistics that will show you that Africa is way below where it's supposed to be in terms of interregional trade. Meaning that if you are in Europe, interregional trade between the European countries is very high at a 70%, Asia at a 60%, North America. And you can look here, something very, very interesting, how estimated trade losses due to fragmentations. Click next, please. You will see that 50 billion is the number. I want you to put that number on your paper. 50 billion, Africa has been losing 50 billion per year due to the following reason: non-tariff barriers. I'll explain that. What is that? Non-tariff barrier, rules of origin, poor infrastructure, border inefficiencies, and lack of harmonization of custom unions procedure. What happens is, giving you a simple example, if I have to move a truck of my goods from Nairobi, Kenya, and drive it to Sudan or just Ethiopia or just Uganda, you find a lot of barriers. The first thing is that there are not harmonized rules of origin between African countries, which opportunity is getting now the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to harmonize those. And there is a lot of poor infrastructure. The roads are not good. The truck that is supposed to take only probably, 18 hours, it will take about 2 days to arrive in a neighboring country. And you have a lot of blockages. You have a lot of police stop on the way while you are moving with the truck. Imagine you bought the goods at a certain cost and you have to pay kickbacks on the roads because you are always stopped by police roadblocks until you arrive at the border of the other country. And you arrive at that border, you need to pay a lot in terms of clearing the goods to go into. So really a lot of inefficiencies at the border, rules of origin that do not function, poor infrastructure, and these makes the trade very complicated. A lot of losses, estimated about 50 billion per year. Further, tariffs and custom delays increase trade costs in Africa up to 40% compared to global averages. These are numbers by the African Development Bank and by the World Bank and UNECA. So next slide. So let's see the times when you move with your goods, the time that it takes for you to be able to clear goods, at the port, at the border, or when you are about to transit into another country. Africa is up to 150 hours, the average border clearance time. Wow. And Europe is 20 hours, Asia is 30 hours, and North America is 25 hours. Delays in, making sure that clearance is done is a big, element in terms of cost increase and uncompetitiveness for trade in Africa. Somebody has raised a hand. I don't know if they have a question. There is an AJ. I would prefer that we ask questions at the end of the slides as they are not long, so that we may have time for more questions. Thank you. So, and what is showing you is that informal cross-border trade losses. You see, let me just be a bit clear in here. Africa loses about 20 billion annually in unrecorded informal trade, especially affecting women and SMEs. What is that? This means that when you arrive at the border, the slide, yes. When you arrive at the border, there is official border crossing and they are unofficial border crossing, which means that people, because there is a lot of time delays, there is a lot of complication at the border, there is a lot of corruption at the border, they prefer, when they arrive at the border, they use people to go into the informal crossing, which means if there is a border here and there is a river, they actually cross the rivers and cross up, through the bushes, and the truck will find them on the other way, the other side, in order to go and load. So most of the trucks that pass, some of them, they pass without the goods because they are informal routes that actually are part of the system in collaboration with the officials at the border. And Africa loses with that about 20 billion annually. Unfortunately, many organizations, official organizations, they refuse to talk about this. And most affected in these are women and small and medium enterprises has, it's a transition is something that really makes Africa lose a lot. Next slide. And when you look at export of raw material against the finished good, boy, Africa export about 80% of its raw material, lithium, gold, oil, not refined, everything is exported. All the raw materials are exported from Africa in such huge quantities. Africa forfeits revenue and job creation by exporting raw materials instead of processing them locally. You look at Europe and Asia, majority of exports are value-added products. Of course, you will not see any export of raw materials coming from China, very rare, or from the US, or from Europe. So most what we see are value-added products. And that is a huge disadvantage for Africa. Next slide, please. Yes, this is a table that I put on competitiveness. Look, in terms of trade competitiveness, Europe is high on top with 10 countries dominating the trade. Asia, high, China, Japan, South Korea, dominating the trade. America, moderately high, and Africa is very low, ranked bottom 50 in terms of trade competitiveness. So it's amazing. So you can see that Africa tends to lose, against all competitors in the market. Next. Now, I would like to talk to you here what is going on. Look, when you have a football field like this, and your goalpost is right down, Europe, the US and Asia are right up there, you will always lose. You can't even score up there because this is an equal playing field. For those who know AGOA, so AGOA is a trade agreement between the US and Africa that allowed Africa to export to the US and have also support from the US. So offers very limited duty-free access, eligibility restriction apply because they think Africa, most of the African products processed in Africa, they don't have that quality that is required. So processed African goods face high US tariffs and compliance barriers, due to the quality, and some of them really have qualities. If you look at South Africa, if you look at what South Africa produces, of what Tunisia and Egypt, Morocco, and Namibia, and some of the countries, even Kenya, but you face a lot of high US tariffs and compliance issues, non-tariff barriers, strict health, procedures, safety procedures, technical requirements. These makes Africa not able to compete, with big developed countries or even with other peers that are other continents. Then when you look at export of SMEs is very, very skewed. Skewed. Africa is really affected. There is not, I've been actually had a meeting last week with some SMEs producing products locally and wanting to export. Oh, you can't imagine the type of barriers that they have been facing. So it's a really unequal playing field between the West and Africa. Now, what do we have today? Well, thank God, today African leaders have set up what we call AfCFTA, which is Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We were actually the financing, and we are still the financing arm for these Continental Free Trade Area. This is the largest free trade area by countries so far. It's 54 members, and so far they have signed and ratified 47 members. For those that are missing are really countries in issues like Sudan and other countries. But 57 countries have started, even Kenya started their first bunch of export using the Continental Free Trade Area. The objective is to eliminate 90% of the tariffs, reduce the non-tariff barriers, enable free movements of goods and people. And you could see if this works well, if there is political will, if there is seriousness, if we remove the roadblocks, if we put the infrastructure in place, I mean roads, we have already the Lubito corridor, which is a huge project today, coming all the way from DRC, passing through Zambia, Angola, into the sea, which cuts the time it took before for DRC to export. That you can see the projected impact of Africa Free Trade Area. I was saying 30 million people could be lifted up immediately out of poverty. And further, 50% growth in intra-African trade by 2030 is expected. Africa stands to gain about 450 billions, by 2030. So these are projections that could be, they are moderate. They could be much more if the African, free trade area is well implemented, and all instructions adhered to, removing the non-tariff barriers, and all the tariffs and all the roadblocks and the corruption which plagues a lot of African countries. Next slide, please. So Africa Free Trade Area in action, the success stories are Kenya and Ghana trade. It was a pilot under the Continental Africa Free Trade Area. Rwanda's simplified regime for small traders is also a success, and the e-commerce platform enabling cross-border SME trades. So there are several examples for what is being accounted, but let me tell you that it's important that the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area should do a lot to promote the initiative and make sure the monitoring mechanism are put in place, and African states need to emphasize on how important it is to exchange within each other. Now, there is a problem. The problem there is that could make this very inefficient is about, the convertibility of the currencies, right? You can't take Kenya shillings and go to South Africa and buy goods. You need to buy US dollars before you go and buy those goods, right? You can't as well take Angolan Kwanza to go to Namibia with it. Maybe Namibia is, they have an agreement. They can really buy with it. They have an agreement, but you can't go to South Africa and buy with Angolan Kwanza, because it's not convertible to each other. There's no convertibility. This is a huge problem to the value of our currencies. So we need to exchange to US dollars and be able to buy in South Africa. So, but there is PAPAS, which is the payment system that African government has put in place, that is led by AfCFTA, which will help to trade between countries using local currencies. That initiative is ongoing, not yet very maximized until the public can benefit on it. It's very limited in terms of action, and we are still using SWIFT. We are still using currency conversion in order to be able to do the trade. That's a big problem. Are colleagues hearing me? Yes, now, how can we disrupt it then? How can we really disrupt this thing and make sure that we do have initiatives that will really provoke a trade explosion? I give here some examples, there are several. We could implement in Africa a digital barter platform. And look, AMECC tends to really, it can lead, create regional e-barter markets. They can be e-barter, or they can be even physical barter markets between the borders, between the countries, in order to exchange goods. These barter markets, they serve to exchange goods with goods, not with any currency. It reduces the forex dependency and promotes the intra-African trade. So examples are exchange of fertilizers or agriculture machinery between countries. It means that, any country that manufactures agriculture machinery can exchange with a country that is manufacturing fertilizers. So exchange of goods produced in one country as compared to another kind of good. As you can see there, I can have flour and I go and exchange it with the sheep because I need meat to sell it down here. So I can exchange with flour or with maize. So very, very interesting. Next slide, please. Yeah, another idea is called AfriTrade as a service. This is a B2B trade facilitation platform offering warehousing, insurance, financing, compliance of the last mile delivery. Why? It brings lower barriers in terms of SME into regional markets. Example is Malian. In Mali, they have a market of Ciabatta's cooperative. The cooperative of Ciabatta, they have a market and they trade, with Ivorian cosmetic through a platform of TAS. That is Africa Trade as a Service. So that's one of the examples that is very successful, into a trade exchange. Next. Another one that I give here as an example could be battery minerals for trade deals, tech trade deals, meaning that instead of exporting raw materials like lithium or cobalt, Africa states could, demand technology transfer or assembly deals in exchange. And let me tell you, Zimbabwe is doing that right now. Zambia is doing that right now. They are exchanging, export. They have conditioned, in fact, export of raw materials with the installation of factories and assembly deals or technology. Africa can move up with a global value chain in that perspective. Zambia trades refined cobalt in exchange for EV battery assembly plants. So that is what is happening. These are initiatives that are, bringing disruption. And another thing which is important that I'm going to talk about, next slide, please. Yeah, you have top-up duty-free zones for intra-African trade fairs. I mean, this is done already. This is not a new ideas. Normally, Chamber of Commerce like yours could set up an initiative at the border. I know that AMECC have been doing these between, you did it in, I think, was it Baringo, or you did it in Bomet. You can set up between the borders, trade fairs whereby, Asian companies, Middle East companies, and why not European companies to join? Why not American company to join? At the border, African countries at the border, and do trade fairs in order to exchange with other countries. This is testable. It has been working in many countries. Indonesia does it with neighboring country. China does it with its neighboring country. Turkey does it with its neighboring country. I mean, in Africa, we used to do it. Some of the countries do it. So these are initiatives that can develop into inter-regional markets and advance. So next slide. Having said that, I come to the meat of my expertise. Wow, trade needs financing. Trade needs money. How can we really, help small and medium enterprises, African exporters, and even African importers to gain access to funding and to be able to do normal trade. And this is why I set up here 5 blocks that are very interesting, and I'm going to dwell a lot in this slide here. Number 1, for all government and non-government organization, and even some companies that are established, they can have access to what we call grant funding for enterprises, or grant funding, for project development. So this is why we have institutions like the African Development Bank. USAID is no more in the picture today. They used to do that a lot. I just put it here to give you an idea what USAID used to do. I mean, a lot of you might have been beneficiaries of USAID, what they were doing in terms of helping SMEs, and NGOs to transition into programs and projects. EU is still doing it. UNDP is still doing it. There are a lot of grants. Today in Africa, you have TD Bank, which is Trade and Development Bank. You have PTA Bank, that's in West Africa, which is a trade development bank. You have Africa-Sim Bank, which is actually the Export and Import Bank of Africa, set up by the African Development Bank and the African government. You have a lot of institutions for those established SMEs or even big companies can have access to. So there is not lack of initiative, but it's not enough. Of course, we recognize that it's not enough. So what facilities do these institutions give? For those who are doing trades, that's what is called trade financing facility. Trade finance, they don't give you cash, okay? They give you facility to cover for your export. They give you facilities like LC's, letter of credit, which is a type of funding that allows you to go and buy in, China and import those goods into China and be able, and then you have what is called SBLC. SBLC is like an LC, but this is a standby guarantee, standby letter of credit, which allows you also to do your import and trades. You could do it between African countries, between African Asian countries, between American countries. But in that, colleagues, stand by and listen to me. There is what is called export credit agencies. They call them ECAs or ECAs. So ECAs are export trade agencies. I mean, listen to what I'm saying. Export credit agencies in each of the countries, especially European countries, Asian countries, and American countries, they have what is called export credit agency that help American companies export to Africa or to any other country. European country export to Africa or any other countries. You find these export credit agencies everywhere in Asia, in each of the countries. So to help for those African companies that want to trade with European, Asian companies, they provide, the export credit agency provide funding for export. Even SMEs can have access to that. I'm very surprised sometimes when I do a presentation, they have no idea that there is something that is called export credit agencies. They provide export insurance, okay? And so that export insurance allows you to buy goods and pay within a certain period of time. How does it work? So the way it works is that if you are, for example, an African business or an enterprise that want to buy from Malaysia, I'm giving specifically example of Malaysia or Singapore or China or Turkey, right? You want to buy from Malaysia, okay? And in Kenya, located in Kenya, what you do is that the seller who is exporting those goods, after you have agreed the quantity of goods, the value of goods, the agreement with those goods, you agree how you intend to pay on those goods, that company or you yourself as a company in Africa, you apply in Malaysia, the export credit in Malaysia, in order to guarantee the export of those goods of their Malaysian companies to Nairobi or to Kenya. And that makes them to issue an insurance and providing a coverage of assurance of payments to the exporter. And the transaction happens that they are, the buyer who is in Nairobi is able to sell those goods within a specified time within the agreement of that export credit agreement. It could be 90 days, it could be 180 days. It's very hard for them to go to 180 days. It's mostly up to 90 days, sometimes 60 days. After you have sold the goods, then you are able to pay for those goods that you have bought. So this is why export credit agencies exist. And there is what you call factoring and so on that African Development Bank, African Bank can provide. Now, furthermore, you have what is called blended finance and guarantees. IFC is International Finance Corporation of the World Bank, operates also in Africa. You have African Guarantee Fund. There is a fund that we set up, African Development Bank set it up, called African Guarantee Fund. It serves to guarantee export, it serves to guarantee trade, it serves to guarantee, businesses, between businesses. The fact that you are small companies does not stop you from venturing to asking these organizations, how can they help you? What are the requirements? What can I do to be able to be eligible? How can I go about it to attain my your eligibility criteria? You have to be really an African company that has questions, that go about it, that go to meeting. The problem we have in Africa is that so many African companies that are called SMEs, they are somehow timid. They don't want to go forward. They don't want to. So there are certain requirements which you are supposed to attain in order for you to be able to qualify. You cannot just be qualified because you are called as African. You are a company in Nairobi, in Kenya, in Namibia, in Zambia, and you don't have the preconditions. You need to fulfill certain conditions, of course. So, and then you have regional investment funds. There are so many in Africa that funds cross-border parks, that fund logistics and so on. They are fintechs. Even in Kenya, you have an organization that is called Fintech Group that really funds fintech trade, and fintech implementation. It's the first ever registered fintech in the world. And it's set up by a group called Loiter, which is an SPV. SPV means Special Purpose Vehicle of Goldman Sachs and HSBC. So, yeah, just to tell you, there are several facilities, but I said here on my introduction in that day 2 weeks ago that if you are a gazelle trying to travel in a desert alone, the lions will eat you. You will have gone. But if you travel in group, in a huge number of antelopes and gazelles, the lion will likely not attack the group, will see who is isolated to attack. Meaning that I'm saying to you, it's very important to do partnership. What AAMECC is doing is a very interesting, platform in order to transmit with clear, understanding what can be done and what must be done. I think I'm not far from doing. So now, call to actions. What could be done? Fully implement the Africa Free Trade Area and invest in infrastructure. Oh boy, the roads, the trade platforms, the trains, the railways, all the infrastructure that are necessary. The problem sometimes we have in Africa is that when you put a road, there is war in the next neighboring country and the road is bombarded. So these things, impede normal trade, impede development. We need to build a strong private sector that have got serious value chains. And I'm challenging AAMECC here to be able to put, value chain advisory, a platform. What does that mean to put a value chain advisory platform? It means that AAMECC can specialize in putting together, documents on development of value chains. You see, which anybody that want to develop how to transform baobab fruit into juice, into cream, into powder, into cosmetics, they can come to AMECC and download the, step-by-step guide on how to do it. Right? You become a simple advisory platform. And that's an amazing thing to do. So value chains in Africa are not understood. If somebody will not come abroad and teach about value chain here or do it themselves, they don't want to teach you how it is done. How can we make sure that when you are producing, I arrive in Zambia, I arrive in Copperbelt in Zambia, and women produce there. Women produce, they are actually doing agriculture, but they don't know how to take that into the market. They don't know how to take that into conservation. They don't know that there is something called, refrigerators for conservation of their products that are perishables. They don't know that. They don't know how to pack that. They don't know how to take to the market. They don't know how to arrive and negotiate with the supermarkets using the Chamber of Commerce or using association or cooperative. Of course, that is changing in a lot of countries. I tell you, there is hope in the window, but it's not enough. That's what I'm saying. Young people like you hearing me here, you can do wonders. Young people like you, don't expect that a commercial bank will come to fund you when you can do wonders with $1,000, with $500, with $200. You start small, you grow up, and you arrive there. We have, of course, we must have development partners to fund, to train, to support, right? And this platform here, it is to converge all these organizations. And as an advisor to AMECC, I'm available even to speak about, how, to transition into serious conversation on funding and advisory services. We have the civil society, the youth. In Kenya, they call them Gen Z, So push for transparency and inclusion. It's very important. Transparency and inclusions, though we have a lot of difficulty to access the decision makers, but it's very important to ask for those meetings. AMECC can ask for meeting between the African and Asian Ministry of Commerce, meet down in Nairobi. We want to talk trade. We want to talk business. We want to talk lifting up barriers. Put these guys together. Let's talk serious. Let's have a conversation, in order to push for transparency and inclusion. This is a make or make moment for Africa. The continent have a lot of raw materials, natural wealth, and yet still burdened by poverty and systemic inefficiencies. So African Continental Free Trade Area offers a great opportunity, but we need to really rise up as youth and be able to bring initiatives which are going, not wait for the government, not wait for anyone, but bring initiatives that are going to explode the market, and we can explode it really. When you talk about, platforms, logistical platforms, and how you can set up logistical, and when I'm talking about logistical platforms, you have within the corridor, for example, it can be done between South Africa and Mozambique. South Africa and Mozambique, it's a corridor that functions well, but when you go there, look, you don't have markets within the corridor. It's called Maputo corridor. You don't have refrigeration logistic systems within the corridor. You don't have trade fairs of exchange within the corridor. You have a lot of barriers and a lot of issues. So then these are the things that we need to change in Africa in order to attain objectives. As I said, it is an important step that we use the African Continental Free Trade Area in all the manners possible. Take advantages. You need to check up where your country stands in terms of ratification. What are the requirements? Again, AMECC stands here to request from African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat what are the countries that have ratified, what did they ratify, what is it removed between Kenya and Uganda, Kenya and Zambia, Kenya, and the countries around, and even within Africa. How can the youth benefit and bring to this webinar here what is what within the African Free Trade Area? So having said that, I think I will answer a lot of your questions. Next slide. Thank you. I am all yours, please.
Thank you very much, our speaker. All right. So yes, we had quite a number of questions that are coming through. If you allow me, I can just go through a few, just sample through a few. Prof, somebody is asking, what is the chance of success against the present bilateral and multilateral multilateral trade agreements, as well as regional integration arrangements? All right, so that is one about the bilateral and multilateral agreements in terms of regional integration. Then another question is about how do we enhance logistics within Africa for easier trade? I know that is one of the emphases that you've made. And why do African countries use their currencies in intra-African trade?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I think those are very important questions. But look, what are the chances? You will not know until you try. Many companies, they have not really tried. But with the new Continental Free Trade Area being implemented, and of course, there could be issues, but it's very important to try and go forward with your trade. You learn by experience. There is no single silver bullet in having successes in trade until you try it and you go through the issues. Of course, you're going to have a lot of issues when you are trying. You will have a lot of difficulties when you are trying. You will have to get a lot of documents done when you are trying. You will have a lot of barriers. They will tell you, go here when you are trying. But that is a process, a normal process when you want to do businesses, to learn how does it work. It's not that you take your goods, you go to the border, you cross, you didn't pay any tariffs or anything. You will find a lot of surprises. So what is very important is do your research. That's first thing. Do your research to know how are you going to do your businesses across the border. What is it required for you to be able to qualify to export across the border? What document? There might be a document that gives you an exemption, you that are exporting. They will ask you, where are you exporting to? Oh, I'm exporting to Uganda. Good. Who are you selling to? Show me, that you have a contract, an invoice, a commercial invoice to where you are going to sell. That's normal, and you have to produce that invoice and the contract, okay? And they do their due diligence. Show me a document that you are a qualified SME in terms of your licenses and so on. These are things you might find out when you want to start. Every business, don't start a business by going to the latter end. You start every business, you must start it by doing first research. Right? Somebody is asking on top of that, are there plans to collapse the regional trading blocks? No, that's not the objective of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The regional bloc exists in order to strengthen regional intertrade, but harmonizing with the African Continental Free Trade Area, it is to strengthen it. But if you look at the regional bloc, they are not only there because of trade. They are there because of many other unity initiatives within each region. In fact, the African Development Bank is one of implementing agencies or advisors to these regional blocks. We have what we call RECs, regional economic communities. Now, coming to the logistics, enhancing logistics within Africa is crucial to boosting inter-Africa trades by reducing the cost of goods, and improving, competitiveness. Now, one of the things which is very important is we need to invest heavily in multimodal infrastructure. What is that? Multimodal infrastructure. Multimodal infrastructures are what we call, railways, ports, roads, corridors, development corridors. I've already said here we have funded a lot of corridors like Abidjan-Lagos corridor, which is ongoing now, developing the road from Abidjan to Lagos. We have Beira corridor, that's in Mozambique. We have Northern corridor, which is in the northern part of Africa. We have several corridors that are within the initiative of the African Development Bank. We've done a lot. If I used to be the portfolio analyst, and you could just see what African Development Bank have done. So number two, harmonized cross-border trade procedures. Of course, this is what that is called, you could implement one-stop border post, electronic single windows for custom clearance, and standardized certification and documentation within the RECs, which are the regional economic communities like ECOWAS, SADC, and EAC. You have COMESA, which is between, EAC and SADC. So these are RECs, and you have, other initiatives also. I would also, for logistics, we need to digitalize and automate logistic systems, strengthen value chain within the infrastructure. And it's very important to have reforms in our policies and regulations in order to facilitate the traders. So there are several things that could be done in order to put logistics in place and improve the value chains and have, really training for these people. Now, I want to summarize answering your question into the following strategic areas. Number one, for you to have good logistics across the border, you need to have infrastructure. You need to have trade facilitation platforms, which are one-stop border posts, for example, electronic customs, reduced non-tariff barriers, which are requirements of security, clearance, or whatever, that put restriction. You need to have technology. You can implement logistics. You need to have policy and regulations. You need to have a big problem here, human capital. Boy, a lot of time we have problems of project implementation because there is no enough knowledge and capacity. So we need to train, bring certification and create job for that. So the last thing is regional cooperation using the RECs. Thank you. Next question, please.
Great. Great, thank you very much. The next question is on taxation. You'd want to speak on taxation across the discussion. And to add on that, which really handles tax, is it possible to harmonize the various taxes across different African countries to make it easy to trade? That, I think that is, again, talking about the intra agreements and trade across the countries. And there's another question that is not really on the taxes, but then this one is asking what's that really make a big percentage of the business ecosystem.
Oh, I think there is a bit of cut, but if I hello? Ruth, I didn't hear the question lastly. You were asking for taxation, but the last part I didn't hear.
Yes?
Yes, I didn't hear the last part, please.
All right. So, all right, sorry about that. So there's a question that you handle the issue to do with tax. And then is it possible to harmonize the various taxes across different African countries to make it easy to trade between the countries? Then another one is asking about the youth. what are the opportunities that are available for the youth that make actually the biggest demographic in the business ecosystem. They're asking whether we have opportunities for grants in businesses. If you could speak to that as well.
Very good, thank you. Look, the objective of the African Continental Free Trade Area is to eliminate 90% of tariffs on goods, over 5 to 10 years period. So this is why I'm saying this is a game changer. If it is well implemented and it's working, oh boy, the world is going to be afraid of Africa. So this is good news because right now, an average intra-African trade rates between 8 to 25% of tariff at the border. Can you imagine? So, sorry, my computer is wants to, let me just put here. So that's a lot. That's a lot. So then, important, the goal is to sense, sensitive products like, 70% excluded, to 7%, for example. They want to really reduce the tariffs across the border on goods, sensitive goods, excluded goods, or even, tax, eliminate totally some taxes on several, goods. And also, I've been talking here about non-tariff fiscal barriers like value-added taxi, which is VAT, and sales taxi. The objective of the African Continental Free Trade Area, it is typically apply on imports even within the African free trade areas. VAT, if a product is exported from Ghana to Kenya, Kenya may still charge a VAT or entry, but it will not charge the import duties. That is what is being discussed here. Now, that is good news, right? Of course, many countries will impose excise taxes on alcohol, tobacco, maybe, products like those, but they are still discussing on creating pricing, eliminating pricing inconsistency. This is a very big theme right now in Africa. So that's possible, yes. Now, for the youth, look, everything is being done for the youth. In fact, you are the reason why African Continental Free Trade Area has been put in place. You are the reason why development of funding within the African Development Bank. Let me give you good news. The African Development Bank launched 5 regional entrepreneurship banks in Africa. They are going to be implemented. I think the test is in Liberia. There will be one most likely in Kenya. There will be, so there are 5 regional entrepreneurship banks to fund the youth. Now, for you to be able to get access to grants and to funding, and as I said at the beginning, you need to organize yourself. How do you organize yourself? This is a theme for probably another discussion, but let me just give you a short snap. Okay, number one, you need to have a project, in your hands. What is a project? A project, starts. It's not just an idea. It's not just a land. A land is not a project. So you need to have, work with somebody. If you don't know how to put a business plan together, how to put a feasibility study, how to really study your project ideas and put it on paper. It could be 10, 20 papers. You put your project idea, you create your companies, you register your companies, you start on ideas. Some of the people, the way they do it is actually starting, on what they know better. They know how to manufacture shoes or sandals. They start, manufacturing their shoes and their sandals, and then now they see they want to scale and produce in mass. They get help from, family members. They start producing a lot, and they learn how to make it a really, a big product, how to scale up the products, how to put it on paper, put on paper. You have worked on these, open a bank account here, call an accountant, put some accounts together, in paper and be able to start accounting how you are doing it. You need to start from somewhere. But if you are already a company that is set up, you can actually use those documentations and apply for grant fundings. Let me just be clear. Grant funding is for the following institutions mostly. There is number one, grant funding, which is on a competitive basis. Competitive basis, it means that you need to pitch for it and be able to win. The best idea wins. That is competitive grant funding. And there is that everybody can have access to. If you ask me where do you find it, you have a lot. ADB does competitive grant funding for agriculture and for renewable energy. It is launched every year. In fact, when it is launched on the net, you can just actually search every year. ADB launches grant funding, and they provide between 100,000 US dollars to 250,000, sometimes 500,000 to the best innovative projects. So that's on a competitive basis. And you have grant funding, which is on sovereign basis, meaning that it is given to governments to develop projects. It could be project development, for the youth. It could be project development of a road to do feasibility studies, which is upstream. Upstream work means you do feasibility study, environmental study, market study, whatever study required for them to be able to do the road. It could be in the sector of education and health. That is on sovereign basis. And then there is grant funding for independent or NGOs. AAMECC is non-profit organization can qualify to apply for grant funding for training small businesses. So, which means that for you to be able to apply for that fund, you need to work on, number one, a PIM. Okay, a PIM is a project information memorandum or concept note. Okay, you put up that PIM or a concept note, which has everything, including your financials and how you intend to spend that money. It's called a proposal. And you have that proposal, you write a letter and you send it to the financial institutions to apply for those specific grants. So that's how it works. So meaning private sector can have access to competitive grant funding. Governments have access to non-competitive or upon request based on their request on what they wanted for their project. And independent organizations or NGOs can have access also to grant funding. Now, on the private sector side, they can have access to grant funding if it's going to be used for a project that will be funded. Let me be more specific. It means that ADB gives $1 million to a given company to do the studies, to do the upstream work on a project that we are going to fund. That is for huge companies or private sector. For example, if anybody is in the US hearing me here, if anybody is in Malaysia, in Asia hearing me here, you have a company that wants to develop a hospital in Sudan, in Ghana, which means that you can actually say, I am going to develop this project in Ghana, and I want the African Development Bank to fund it. But please, I am requesting for grant funding to do the studies on the ground. I have, I can even share with AMEC the requirement for funding for private sector. There is a book, that will guide you how you access the funding for private sector with the African Development Bank. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you, Prof, for that well-elaborate question. So these will also answer some of the questions on chat, and we keep encouraging you to please put your questions on chat. And Nkama, I've seen your hand has been up for quite some time. I believe what you intend to ask is what you've posted on chat, so we shall make sure that we ask Prof about it. So to the question from Kennedy Owino, thank you, Prof, for the insight. This has been telling with my worry. As a pharmacist, being that this is my sector, why don't we have our own pharmacopoeia? So pharmacopoeia in this case means an official publication containing a list of medicinal drugs, their formulas, standards of purity, dosage, methods of preparation, and testing requirements, which of course align with the value chain that you talked about. So also, I think Africa is over-importing drugs simply because our governments don't set aside industries vigorous enough to meet our health standards. I presume the cost of setting up such farms, though may seem expensive at the long run, will be beneficial as we won't shred over things like suspension of USAID. Kindly, what's your take on these? So that's a question from Kennedy Owino.
Okay.
Prof, you'd like to take that?
Yes, very important questions. Please, research have shown that, I understand, I know what is pharmacopoeia. In Africa, we have at the level of Africa Union, a pharmacopoeia published in 1985. That is when it was called OAU, but it's updated. But countries have their own pharmacopoeias, like Nigeria have one, Kenya have one. I don't know if it's available to everybody. South Africa have one, and many others. And we have African Medicine Agency that have been working on pharmacopoeia. So you can search that on the net or anywhere. You will have more information. But, Africa is doing something great. We set up a technology or institute for pharmacology in Rwanda, which will be developing the industry of pharmacy in Africa. It's not enough, of course. The needs are huge, but you can, if you are in the industry, you can actually create initiative that will gain great support, because pharmacology or pharmacy, it's one of the areas that is of great interest to funders. Let me give you a tip. It's highly, regulated, and it needs high expertise. You are asking a question to somebody that in my high school I did medical laboratory before I ran away into engineering, and after I went to do PhD in economics. So I understand a bit what you're talking about.
It's also one of your areas of interest, I see.
Yes. So actually, I've been advising on medical projects, and it's one of my area of interest because I love the area. So one of the things that is happening is that there is a big push on funding in pharmacology or pharmacy industries, especially industries for you to be, since COVID, it scaled up, producing masks, producing all medical gadgets, for producing creams and stuff. A lot of stuff is happening in Africa elsewhere. If, there are a lot of initiatives. If I just pull from my computer, I can just tell you some of the initiatives that are happening. Please don't be left behind. There is a lot of support on that. And what I would advise young people in Africa, listen to me. The problem is called ALZINESS, laziness. That is a big war, Mural de China, the greater war of China, that is stopping young people from advancing, and they have a lot of ideas. They are creatives. But the problem is, once they know that I can make the soap that we wash clothes with, right? You can actually take peanuts and pound it and, create soap, right? They've done it before. They can see somebody do it. You can actually take that step by step until you become an industry. The problem is you need to make research, you need to learn from people, you need to call some people, you need to sit down, you need to nag Flora until Flora will tell you how does this thing work step by step. And this is a great opportunity for the young people in this AMEC. I'm also telling AMEC, please put the advisory services on all these guides, on all these value chains. You will have a big niche that nobody else does among the Chamber of Commerce and Industries across the Africa. They have, this is a huge animal that have huge opportunity that is really seated on it. So then I know AMEC is already doing these great things. They will not sit on it. They will work actually on it.
Absolutely, Dr. Augusto.
Yes.
We totally agree with you on that area. And I believe even when responding to that question, you answered Keith Kibet, who had asked what initiatives are in place to ensure youth-led startups benefit from intra-African trade. And of course, we've picked a lot of benefits from your presentation in terms of the financing that is accessible. So as you said, yes, we need to stop being lazy. We need to seek out all these opportunities that are available to us and make sure that we take advantage of them. So I'll go to Nkama, who had her hand raised up. So she asked, what can be done to enhance the insurance across Africa in order to secure the goods and business? I know you talked about export credit agencies, but probably you could just expound further.
Okay, we have in Africa, we have what is called ATI. ATI is African Trade Insurance. We have so many initiatives in Africa, right? But people don't know, unfortunately. Yeah, we have African Trade Insurance. The objective is to cover for, to secure trade, as you know, and provide insurance. It could be even political, you know, for governments. It could be imports. It could be, you know, all types of insurance. That is a continental initiative that is there. Up on it, they will help you. You know, of course, there are several types of insurance, which is a domain that is largely, you know, developed in Africa. You have trade, transit insurance, marine insurance, warehousing insurance. You have, you know, paramedic insurance. You have accidental, whatever it is, risk and losses and stuff. But in terms of trade, we have ATI. In terms of trade, you have TD Bank that provides also insurance. TDB Bank is a trade and development bank. You have African Bank that provides also insurance, you know, of goods. You know, I spoke about it in the beginning that those insurance means that goods arrive at your doorstep, you know, secured as they were paid for, and you are able to sell them and be able to pay within the agreed period. Yeah. So then those facilities, that's a facility also, it is chargeable, by the way. You know, it's an instrument. It's a learning instrument, so they cover you, they charge you for that. But it's okay, you need to be charged in order for you to be able to do your business. Those facilities exist. Of course, there is one idea that funding is cheap, right? Funding is not cheap. You need to work for it. You need to labor for it. You need to put together, you know, all type of your project. You know, I consider all the time, you know, project is upstream. Okay, I can explain that. I've already explained. And, you know, upstream and downstream, right? Upstream project development means that you develop all necessary studies for you to be able to attain that level where you are considered. What is that? So number one, you need to have a concept note of the project. That's number one. Number two, you need to have a business plan of the project. That's number two. Number three, you need to have a feasibility study of the project. And the business plan and feasibility studies are two slightly different things. Okay? So number four, you need to have an off-take study, which means market study. That's what you call market study. It's an off-taker. Who will buy your product? What is the niche of those that will buy those products? You know, what is the percentage? You don't be, you know, lazy is not good. You can actually study and know how many people love, you know, my brand. Sorry, I got a call here. How many people love my brand? How many people love to drink water? okay, I can actually go in the middle of Machakos and be asking, you like this? I produce it. You like this water? Yeah, get it for free. You like this water? Get it for free. Everybody will run in Machakos and come and get my water. So, normally statistics done through sampling. You don't go and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how many people know. You do sampling, right? When you have those off-taker studies, do off-taker agreements. Off-taker agreement, it means that you go to supermarket and you say, look, sir, I can produce water, and water is called flora. Drink it and you will flourish, right? So just sign an agreement with me. It's non-legal. It's non-binding. Please, I need to have how many you will buy and so on. No, I want to buy 100. I go to another hotel and I do those, non-binding agreement, pre-agreements that are called off-taker agreements, right? It's not difficult. You can do it. You see? So once you have, I'm just giving you the list what you need, please, if somebody is writing. Once you have the off-take agreement, if it is an infrastructure project, you need to have what is called ASIA, Environmental Impact Social Assessment Study, but that's more specialized. If it is an infrastructure, if you are building a factory, if you are building a pharmaceutical industry, if you are building some, but if it is trade, you don't need that. No, number 6, I don't know what number I have. You need to have something that is called design studies. If you are building a real estate project, you need to have the design. If you are building an industry, you need to have a design of how it will be and stuff. You can talk to somebody that does a design. Please design this for me. When I get it, I'm sure I can really trade with you, trade knowledge with you. I'll give you this and give you that. So now, besides that, you need to have a financial model. What is a financial model? It will provide you projections on how you are going to do this business. When will you have a break even? When will you attain objective? How will you be, it will be the cash flow, right? That is what is called financial model. And from financial model, now you need to have, talk to some people. You talk to Flora, you talk to Ruth, you talk to Peter, tell them, please, I want you to be, tentative board members, in my project, give your CVs and so on, you design, you put those guys that will be specialized in running this business. After you put that together, and you need to have something that is called guarantees. That is where the problem is. What type of guarantees? You can have several types of guarantees, but you have a land, for example, or you have a property, or you have 20% of the project. If you don't have 20% of the project, go and get partnership with somebody that can say, I have 20%. If that person does not have 20%, get a partnership of somebody that have got actually financials, audited financials that can support, the equity part, which is 20 to 30%. You put into partnership. You have to go after this. That is the most difficult part, mostly in Africa. I know that for a fact. Right. Once you have that list that I've just said here, you need to have also a small report that is called ADOA, Additionality and Development Outcome, which means how many women are you going to employ, how many youth, how many disabled, what is the development impact, how many areas that will develop, what is the percentage of jobs that you will create, direct jobs, indirect jobs, that type of, the additionality and development impact study. And you need to have a pitch. Once you have that list, you are considered serious. You need to have agreements of the land and licenses. You have that, you are serious. We need to talk.
Indeed, Dr. Maquengo, I think it's quite clear what not being lazy means. You've just given us a whole process of how to create an upstream project development for you to look serious. And we've clearly understood what needs to be, what opportunities that you can nurture once we are able to do that. You're quite passionate, and it has resonated a lot with a lot of us who are always seeking funding. But sometimes we want the easier way out, or we want to contact funders, but we've not put in the work. So we've really taken the lessons, Dr. Maquengo, and I like how you emphasize that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is more than a treaty. It's actually the Africa's blueprint for economic independence and industrialization. So unfortunately, because of time, we cannot exhaust all the questions. However, please continue putting them on chat. Through the AAMECC platform, we'll be able to get back to you with all the responses to all your questions. So we'd like to sum up this session. However, before we sum up, I'd like to appreciate Dr. Maquengo for making time to educate us about disruption of trade in Africa. It's a pertinent topic, and you've seen the way it has elicited a lot of interest. We'll definitely get in touch for future webinars to expound more on this topic, so that we can continue discussing and see how we can accelerate trade in Africa. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome the president of AAMECC. AAMECC is the platform that hosted this webinar. It's an intercontinental platform which is committed to unlocking opportunities and fostering strategic partnerships across 3 dynamic regions, which is Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The president of AAMECC is Peter Motinda. Peter is the president who leads the organization's strategic vision to foster strategic partnerships across the 3 continents. He has over 15 years of international business experience, and he has been quite instrumental in driving the innovation and economic collaboration across these 3 continents. In addition to his role, Peter is also the CEO of Richfield Capital, which is a firm specializing in investment and business development. He's also the author of The Last Minute Adrenaline, a book that delves into leadership and decision-making under pressure. Peter, let's welcome Peter as he talks about AAMECC and how to elicit more membership in order to gain from the enormous opportunities that we have for you. Peter Motinda, over to you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Flora. And thank you so much, Dr. Maquengo, for that insightful perspective on navigating trade disruptions through Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement. You talked about how to foster sustainable growth in Africa, and your expertise really sheds light on crucial strategies for our collective future. As we reflect on Dr. Maquengo's remarks, it is clear that Africa stands on a very pivotal moment. The African countries, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area presents unprecedented opportunities to dismantle barriers, harness innovation, and shape a very prosperous economic destiny. Some of the things we talk about here, they need resilience. You will not, wake up today and tomorrow you find you've achieved. You need resilience, and that is what is going to be witnessed in what is now popularly known the AAMECC webinars, which are going to continue in earnest, and bringing such honorable speakers as Dr. Augusto Maquengo. We really appreciate that. And blessed attendees, with that behind us, let's focus on the important work ahead. And that is just letting you know that at AAMECC, we are dedicated to championing the reforms necessary for a stronger Africa. We are here to facilitate cross-border collaboration, support SME industrialization. You can check it on the charts there. Our contacts have just been shared, and unlock the full potential of Africa. Together, we can drive inclusive growth and shape a prosperous future for the continent. Okay, our contact details is info@aamec.org. You can see on your screen there. The website is www.aamec.org. AAMECC is AAMECC, and AAMECC stands for Africa, Asia, Middle East Chamber of Commerce. Our vision is fostering sustainable trade, sustainable investment, sustainable innovation. And what is sustainable? Sustainable is when there's mutual benefit between the parties. That is what we are talking to the Africans, that is what we are talking to the Asians, to the Americas, to the Europeans, all the way to the Middle East. That is what we are saying to the globe. Yeah, you can scan our code there to get our contacts. We are saying any kind of engagement has to have a mutual benefit, and that's how it can be sustainable. Okay, when an investor comes from Europe to Africa, they need to look at the welfare of Africans. Africans need to look at their welfare. Remember what they say, that you can make the cake so huge and everybody will have a portion. That's what we are looking into. And it starts with us gaining knowledge and information, you know, like what has been spoken to us today. I've seen many people in the chats, they were asking for the slides, they're asking for a lot of information. Please write to us and you'll be able to get that and many, many more. Yeah, but we want to thank you very much. Thank you for your understanding and continued commitment to this course. Let's move forward together and let's have a lasting impact. Thank you for now. Back to you, moderator.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, we continue encouraging members to join us. We are the point of contact between our presenters and, of course, the networks that we have, which you could benefit from. Please join us and we'll be able to offer you these enormous benefits. So to conclude, I'd like to call Byron Mutari, who is one of our directors, to just give the vote of thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Flora. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of AAMECC, it is my honor and privilege at this point to deliver this vote of thanks for such an enlightening webinar on the disruption of trade in Africa, leveraging AfCFTA to overcome challenges and drive sustainable economic growth. First and foremost, I'd like to express our deepest gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Augusto Maquengo, for sharing, taking their time to share such deep insights and expertise with us. Your presentation was truly informative and thought-provoking, and we are certain that it has inspired the participants to think deeply about this subject. A heartfelt thank you to all of you, our participants, who joined us from different corners. Your enthusiasm and active engagement through the chat box has made the session even more meaningful. Your questions and interactions have indeed added great value to the discussion, and we are hoping that we'll continue with these engagement going on into the future. I would also like to extend our appreciation to organizing team for their behind-the-scenes efforts, ensuring that we had a successful webinar. From the technical support to coordination and everything. This is a testament that what we are doing here, we are onto something that is very big with such discussions. And we trust and we believe that we have overcome these challenges. Lastly, I thank you all the partners and everybody else who contributed to make this space or this webinar such a resounding success. We hope that as we sign out, that today's session will leave you more informed and inspired and excited for the space that Africa is occupying at the moment, even as we look to open trade within the continent. Thank you once again. Stay safe, take care, and have a good night. Back to you, Flora.
Thank you so much, Byron. Yes, we appreciate all of you for making time to attend our webinar. Please stay tuned for additional webinars in the future. Feel free to write to us, let us know where you're listening us from, and we'll be able to customize even our webinars to make sure that they suit your jurisdiction. So thank you so much to everyone. I wish you all a lovely evening, a lovely afternoon, a lovely morning, wherever you're joining us from. So as you can see, our next webinar will be hosted by Dr. Romel Santos from Malaysia. He's the CEO of CAM Digital Technologies. Please stay tuned for additional webinars and we'll continue to post them and get in touch with you with more information. Thank you so much and have a lovely evening, afternoon, and good morning. Bye and cheers.
Business doesn't grow in isolation. It grows across borders. But for many entrepreneurs, expanding beyond local market is filled with roadblocks. That is why AAMECC exists to connect Africa, Asia, and the Middle East through trade, partnership, and progress. From exporters to investors, AAMECC bridges nations and empowers businesses. With over 80 countries represented and hundreds of millions in trade facilitated, our members just don't talk business, they do business. Conferences, expos, investment forums, you are never alone in this journey. Join a chamber that understands your ambition. AAMECC is your gateway to international opportunities. Visit www.aamec.org and take your seat at the global table. AAMECC, global partnerships across continents.